What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we are going to discuss the tragic loss of 5 incredibly wealthy people who decided to take a very bad risk in traveling down to the depths of the sunken Titanic in a soda can and having the soda can get crushed on them. Honestly, probably the best way for them to pass away, if there was going to be a way to pass away from this tragedy. But honestly, this is like so dumb. Why did you go to the bottom of the ocean, you dummies? In a craft that, if you looked at it, looked like something that was put together with some duct tape and JB Weld. What were you thinking? You know, the company that did it, OceanGate, they hired a safety professional who studied their craft that they were using and warned them that it could not sustain the pressure. It could not withstand the pressure that would be exerted on it at the depths of the Titanic, which is 4,000 meters below sea level. They had a port window that would not muster past 1,300 meters. And the waiver that these folks signed after they paid $250,000 per person to take this trip, the waiver that they signed was very clear. You very likely you can die during this trip. And it's been all over the news for days. So much so that it's come as a shock that on the other side of the world, over near Greece, another ocean emergency happened with a boat with an approximate between 500 and 800 refugees on it, capsized, and it didn't get nearly the attention that these very wealthy folks traveling to the bottom of the ocean on a luxury trip to go look at a wreck that they could have seen in the movie Titanic just as well, and it would have been cheaper. But they don't think like that because they're very wealthy, so $250,000 ain't no thing for them. I hope it was worth it. My heart goes out to the families because I know that they're hurting. I don't know what to tell y'all, but I made a joke about it, put it on my socials. You remember back in the Trump presidency when Melania wore that jacket that said, "I really don't care, do you?" on the stairs on the way up to the plane. It was very insensitive. It was during the whole George Floyd protests, I believe. It might have been even a little bit before that. I'm not sure on the timing, but I knew it was a very scandalous picture because it was very offensive at the time. Well, I took that picture and shared it with the caption, "My jacket when I'm asked about a billionaire and other rich folks dying doing stupid sugar honey iced tea. $250,000 to go join the souls of the deceased victims of the Titanic. Sounds like a great idea. Rest in peace to the 5 latest Titanic victims. What an avoidable tragedy." I'm gonna confess, I got some grief for that joke. I was told I was heartless for that one. And I understand the sentiment, but I save my empathy for those who die at the greed of billionaires and the greed of the wealthy and the systems that oppress working people and steal the excess profits from the labor of working people to funnel it to very few folks, which causes the number of billionaires to expand while exploding the number of people living in poverty and abject poverty. Not to mention the injustices and inhumanities that go around all across the world so that companies can make very few rich people into billionaires. So I don't have any tears for them. I'm sorry. But that's cool, though. You can see by the news coverage that there's a lot of folks that do. There's a lot of folks crying for him. Just ain't gonna be this guy. I'll save my tears for the ladies at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, where, you know, those greedy rich folks locked the doors and had them burned to death. That's where I'm gonna save my tears for. I did want to give you a little bit of an update, though. This is from Reuters. Titanic sub destroyed in catastrophic implosion. All 5 aboard are dead. This came out at 8:07. It was updated 8:17 p.m. So just recently. A deep-sea submersible carrying 5 people on a voyage to the century-old wreck of the Titanic was found in pieces from a catastrophic implosion that killed everyone aboard. The U.S. Coast Guard said on Thursday, ending a multinational 5-day search for the vessel. Multinational 5-day search for some rich folks lost at the bottom of the ocean. But there wasn't a multinational effort to save the refugees off the coast of Greece. Let us be clear, we did not spend public funds to help people fleeing tragedy and famine and war and desperation who were lost at sea. No, we spent public funds to try to find and save folks who paid $250,000 a pop for a luxury trip and their balloon went pop. But our public resources were spent trying to find them as opposed to trying to rescue other folks with public resources. And that's not to say that, you know, it's a fair comparison, but it's a fair comparison. It's outrageous where we lay the value of our public resources. And it's funny for the billionaire class because they privatize the profits and then they socialize the expenses. Every time they're hurting, when a bank goes down, when an airline has a problem, every time they got an issue, they socialize their pain while privatizing their gain. And here, even in death, they socialize their pain while they spent their private money to go and play. That money could have been spent to feed some children, man. What a waste. Anyway. A deep-sea submersible carrying 5 people on a voyage to the century-old wreck of the Titanic was found in pieces from a catastrophic implosion that killed everyone aboard, the U.S. Coast Guard said. A robotic diving vehicle deployed from a Canadian ship discovered a debris field from the submersible Titan on Thursday on the seabed some 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic, 2.5 miles beneath the surface in a remote corner of the North Atlantic. The Titan, operated by the U.S.-based company Ocean Gate Expeditions, had been missing since it lost contact with its surface support ship on Sunday morning, about an hour and 45 minutes into what should have been a 2-hour dive to the world's most famous shipwreck. 5 major fragments of the Titan were located in the debris field, including the pressure hull. Coast Guard officials said there was no mention as to whether any human remains were found. The debris field is consistent with a catastrophic implosion. Even before the Coast Guard's press conference, Ocean Gate issued a statement saying there were no survivors, including the company's founder and chief executive officer, Stockton Rush, who was piloting the Titan with a PlayStation controller. That ship was piloted by a PlayStation controller. And these folks were so smart that they acquired enough wealth to be able to spend $250,000 to get on a ship that my dumb ass would have known better than to get on as soon as I saw Buddy had a PlayStation controller to go up and down. The 4 others were British billionaire and explorer Hamish Harding, 58, Pakistani-born businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his 19-year-old son. I feel bad for the son. Dad probably dragged him along on this trip, and son was like, why do I have to go on this? I don't get it, Dad. What's the point? Why am I here? I feel bad for him. Submarine, both British citizens, and French oceanographer and renowned Titanic expert Paul Henry Nargelet, 77, who had visited the wreck dozens of times. You've been there a bunch of times. What you need to go back for? These men were true explorers who shared a distinct spirit of adventure and a deep passion for exploring and protecting the world's oceans, the company said. Our hearts are with these 5 souls and every member of their families during this tragic time. It is a tragedy. Rescue teams from several countries had spent days scanning thousands of square miles of open seas with planes and ships looking for a sign of the Titan. Intense worldwide media coverage of the search largely overshadowed the aftermath of a far greater maritime disaster stemming from the wreck of a migrant vessel off the coast of Greece last week, killing hundreds of people, and yet got a fraction of the help. What are you gonna do? Anyway, I just think it's illustrative of how we like to privatize the profits and socialize the losses. And when it's poor people that are hurting, nobody cares. But when it's rich folks that got a little bit of pinch folks, the whole world loses their marbles. And this is a very extreme example of that. But you can find examples of that everywhere. Just look at the economic crises that have happened in your lifetime, because they already happened in 08, and now you got it going on now, and then you had the pandemic and the crash of 20. So we already had a bunch of things happen. What a wild place we live in. But when will working people realize that our power lies within each other? Someday, I hope. Anyway, my name's Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember, the fight is not left and right, it is up and down, and it takes solidarity to win always. Each one teach one, get out there and reach one, and there can be no union without you and I front and center. Peace.